everybody. Welcome back, and have a seat, grab a drink, stay a while, will you? Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about this particular material that was given to me at the last Type-In here in Albuquerque that happened a few weeks ago. A lady gave a sheet of this to me. It's called Evalon, and it's a material made of polyester and nylon. It's non-woven, and it can be used as a canvas to paint on, and it also can be used as the backing sheets for printing, like copper plate printing and different kinds of printing techniques. And it comes in several different thicknesses, but she recommended that this might be a good backing sheet for use in a typewriter when you have a really hard platen. And I thought, well, it would be a good chance to test this out on some of my machines that have hard platens, but since we're going to do that, let's compare it to 4 other types of backing sheet materials that I've used, and we'll see how it stacks up. So stay tuned. Well, for the purposes of our experiment, I'm going to be using this Hermes 3000. It has a pretty hard platen. I'm also going to be using my Groma Colibri. It too has a hard platen, but it's a smaller diameter platen, so that's also a factor, how well a backing sheet feeds into the typewriter. And so I'm going to be using some thin typing paper. I'm going to be using the Mead multi-purpose paper. I'll be doing an initial typing test without any backing sheet on both typewriters, and then we have this brown or tan paper is like 20-pound resume paper, which makes a pretty good backing sheet. And then this is, I think, up to now has been my favorite backing sheet. This is construction paper. It's normally 9 by 12 inch size. I cut it down to letter size so it fits easily in the typewriter behind the typed sheet. This is what I usually use when I need a backing sheet, so that'll be a benchmark, right? Then, in my little MJ Roy typewriter, I've been using a sheet of this 4 mil thick polyethylene plastic film, and you can probably see it's pretty well imprinted with impact marks from the type slugs on the MJ Roy, but it also works as a pretty good typing sheet or backing sheet. Then we have a sheet of 1/64 inch thick synthetic rubber. Now the shore hardness, by the way, which you measure with a shore hardness meter, the shore hardness on this is softer than what you would want on a platen, but I've tried it on some machines. It works good on some. Other machines it doesn't really. And then finally we're going to try the Evalon material and see how that works as a backing sheet. Okay, so this is the Hermes 3000 with just a bare sheet of paper in here. Okay, we get a good idea of the sound it makes and of the type style or type quality. This is just the QWERTY row. Okay, that was with the tan backing paper. Okay, the construction paper backing paper, kind of redundant. Okay, the polyethylene film backing sheet. Okay, this is the rubber 1/64. We'll just ignore that error. Rubber sheet backing sheet. Again, it's redundant all over. We're going to evaluate the results when we're all done here, but let's just say the rubber sheet is really sloppy and extra dark. Okay. And let's see what thickness. I think she gave me the 168. I can definitely tell you that it is quieter. I mean, it wasn't all that noisy before, surprisingly, but it actually is quite noticeably quieter. Quite noticeably quieter. Groma Colibri, no backing sheet. Let's set it to single line spacing. Okay, this is with the tan 20 grams backing sheet, or 20-pound backing sheet, I guess. Just make that an LB, a pound symbol. Okay. All right. It is a little bit quieter with the tan backing sheet, but I had to do a little finagling to feed it into the machine. Yellow construction paper. All right. Polyethylene film backing sheet, and it fed easily. It fed better than the previous two paper sheets. Let's see how it looks here. I would say the sound of it is not quite as dampened as with the previous two. Okay, this is the 1/64 inch thick, and it is quieter for sure. I also had no problem feeding it in the machine. I first fed the rubber sheet a couple lines, and then I fed the paper in behind it, and it gripped it just fine. Okay, this is the Evylon backing sheet, and by the way, it fed in quite nicely. And it is actually quiet. It's almost as quiet as with the rubber sheet. Well, let's review our results, shall we? We'll start with the Hermes 3000. So, no backing sheet on the Hermes 3000. The imprint was actually okay. I do notice a little bit of, like, some of the characters, like, for instance, the 1/4 symbol, it's a little sloppy, and that might just be the way the type slug is hitting the platen. And also the Q and the W, there's a little bit of lightness to the tops of those letters that you don't see on the other capitals, so I think it's type slug alignment, but overall not too bad. And the sound of it is not that bad. It's not super loud, because Hermes 3000s are generally pretty quiet anyways. So with the tan paper, the 20-pound tan paper, it looks like the W has gotten sloppier here than before, but it is darker of an imprint. And then with the construction paper backing, it actually looks pretty decent. It is certainly darker. The W is still a little sloppy. Quarter is about the same, not too bad. I think between the tan paper and the construction paper may have a slight edge. And then the polyethylene film, surprisingly, is even better. It is darker, and actually the Q and the W are a little crisper. So I would almost say on this particular machine, the poly film is a pretty good option. The thin rubber sheet is just way too sloppy here. You see a lot of the letters have shading and sloppy ink inside of them, so even though it was dampening the sound quite well, it's just too soft of a material. And then finally, the Evylon. This is 168 grams per square meter Evylon that I have a sample of. It is dark, second only to the rubber sheet, but not quite as crisp as you'd like. It's kind of soft. The letters don't leave a real crisp imprint. It was, however, dampening the sound quite well. So I would say for the Hermes 3000, I kind of prefer either the polyethylene film or the yellow construction paper. The color doesn't matter, but either construction paper or the polyethylene film seems to work the best. And now for the Groma Colibri. Now its line weight of its typeface is thinner than with the Hermes, so it's going to look lighter initially. No backing sheet. It's not too bad. There is a little bit of bottom faintness to some of the capitals, like the Q. That could be an alignment issue. So then we use the tan 20-pound paper, and the imprint doesn't really darken up per se, but it does get more consistent. Some of the lightness parts of some of these characters without a backing sheet, now they look more consistently the same as the others. I like that. And then you go to the yellow construction paper. It actually doesn't look as good as the tan backing paper. Some of the letters are just fainter. So far, the tan 20-pound paper is working good. And then the polyethylene film actually looks pretty darn good. The letters are crisper than with the paper up here, and not bad. I think they're a little bit lighter, like the Q is not quite as dark as up here. But I have a note here that it did feed quite easily. I had some issues with these thicker papers. I had to kind of force them through the platen to get them to feed because the rollers are so skinny and they're hard. So the polyethylene film for the Groma Colibri is looking good. Okay, the rubber sheet actually looks pretty darn good. There is a little bit of inky shading in some of the letters, like the C and the B, A, but it's not real sloppy like on the Hermes 3000. It's actually pretty acceptable. It fed quite easily, and it made it a lot quieter. And then finally, the Evylon. The Evylon is kind of soft or a light imprint, and yet there's still a little bit of inky smudges in some of the letters. So I think it's just too soft of a material. I'm not really sold on the Evlon material for either of these typewriters. For the Hermes 3000, it really comes down to probably the construction paper is the best backing material, with the poly film coming in second. And with the Chroma Colibri, it looks like the polyethylene film and the construction paper, either one of those, or actually let's say the 20-pound paper and or the polyethylene film is probably the best for the Chroma Colibri. Well, the results were not as consistent as I thought they would be. Certainly on both machines, a backing sheet of some kind is better than no backing sheet. That seems to be the results of this. And I think if there was one particular winner, it's going to be the construction paper on both of these. And also the plastic film is a good second for both of these. The 20-pound paper fared pretty well. The rubber sheet and the Evlon sheet were a little too soft. And by the way, the differences in results between the two machines could be attributed to the differences in shore hardness, and we could measure that. The problem is this durometer that I have actually has the wrong kind of tip. You're supposed to have the tip that has a ball end, a rounded end for measuring rubber. This one has the sharp pointed end, which is really designed for harder surfaces. So this doesn't really give you an accurate reading because it pokes through the rubber onto the core of the platen. Lesson there, if you're in the market for buying a durometer, make sure it has the rounded tip for a typewriter platen. Anyways, so I don't really have some good numbers as far as why the differences are between the two machines. The typefaces are different, right? Because the line weight of the Colibri's typeface is thinner, so it'll probably handle smudginess or soft imprint, blurry printing a little bit better than the imprint on the Hermes that's already a thicker line weight. So I think one of the lessons here is, first of all, you probably could find a kind of backing material like construction paper or this thicker polyethylene film that might work good for a lot of different machines. But the other lesson might be you should probably test out each one of your machines and find the optimal backing sheet for it. And also, just to confuse the matter even further, this test was done on some thin Mead multi-purpose paper. If you're using thicker paper to begin with, that might change the results completely. So really the lesson here is experiment with different papers and different backing sheets to find the optimal one. But as far as would I recommend the Evlon material as a backing sheet, not really. I don't think I would, and really I don't think I'd recommend this really super thin rubber sheet. Both of these materials just have too low of a shore number. The shore hardness really isn't hard enough to be a great material. You want it to provide a little bit of cushion, but you don't want to be so cushiony that it makes the imprint smudgy. So you still want to get a sharp, crisp imprint of your type slug onto the paper. Well, I hope this helped you somewhat. At least it shows that we can go and experiment and try to optimize our typewriters. If you're not in the place where you can remove the platen and send it off to a place like J.J. Short and pay for it to get resurfaced with rubber, either due to economic concerns or just the ability to take the platen out. Maybe you don't have that ability. I understand perfectly well, and so a lot of times we want to look for alternatives to make the typing experience better with a machine that isn't fully restored, and I think a backing sheet is a great idea. I recommend it. In fact, the original equipment manufacturers of typewriter manufacturers recommended backing sheets back in the day also. Well, I wish you guys the very best. Stay creative. Drop a note down below if you want to talk about backing sheets and what's your favorite backing sheet. And until next time, have yourselves a great day. Bye-bye for now.